Welcome to today's session. eStreamer or Syslog, which one to choose for security events when it comes to firewall. Especially, everybody nowadays, I believe, uses SIEM solutions, security information and event management tools or solutions for their threat investigations. So that's what today's session is about. My name is Dinkar Sharma. I am a technical marketing engineer for Cisco Secure Technical Alliance team. I work for Security Business Group. I have here my colleague, Syed Khadim. He's a developer. He primarily takes care of the eStreamer component and the software code, which a lot of our vendors uses. So we'll talk about that. So why are we here? So our team, we do a lot of third-party integrations. We work with a lot of our partners when it comes to security integration, whether it's APIs, policy automation, security events being one of them, one of the big one. So yeah, me and Syed, we both work together with those partners in terms of making those integrations happen and make sure our mutual customers, Cisco and non-Cisco, they can leverage our product and use their product efficiently when it comes to security. So yeah, like I said, I'm a TME for CSTA. It's been a year. Prior to CSTA, I have worked as a TAC engineer in Cisco Firewall, ASA, Firepower, TAC team, AAA security. So I have worked on ICE products for a year and a half. I worked as a customer success engineer for the entire Cisco security portfolio, covering StealthWatch, Umbrella, pretty much the flagship products. I hold a CCI security and a DevNet associate certification. And I am also working on my master's from Dakota State University. I'm halfway through. Hopefully next year by this time, I'll have that degree. And yeah, good. Overall, I have been in this industry, in services industry, like 12 years, plus 1 year in technical marketing. So this one is a new team for me. And yeah, so far everything is working good. I have worked with a lot of customers in services industries. Even while working in this team, we do get a lot of customers and partners who ask questions about firepower, security events, especially, and that was the reason this session came into existence. They had a lot of questions, and firepower after the Sourcefire, after the acquisition of 2015. We went through a lot of changes with respect to firewall, and we still keep changing a lot of stuff to make it better. And yeah, that is the reason we thought this session is going to give a good perspective with respect to security events to all of our customers and partners. All right, so we're going to talk about security events with respect to Syslog and eStreamer. Syslog is the traditional method of getting all those events. So we're going to talk about, I'll go through an introduction session. We'll talk about unified Syslog, which was introduced after the firepower threat defense came into existence. And we'll go through different security event samples. What are the different type of security events available through Syslog, and we'll talk about them. What are the different fields available in those events, which might be important to you for threat investigation. Similarly, second part of the session will be Event Streamer. So we'll talk about what Event Streamer is and what are the different security events and samples we have using eStreamer protocol. What type of integrations we have with eStreamer with our partners, and if you can leverage those. And then, yeah, Syslog versus eStreamer. So I have tried to keep it simple, I'll be honest with you. We have Syslog security events, we have eStreamer security events. What's the telemetry you get in Syslog? What's the telemetry you get in eStreamer? And basically, at the end of the day, it's going to be your decision which one you choose. I have my perspective over there, which tells you, okay, this is easy in first aspect, this might be difficult in second aspect. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's my both of our perspective of how we view these events, and maybe it'll help you to choose which one to choose in terms of your SIEM solution. At the end, we'll talk a little bit about roadmap. Roadmap with respect to Syslog and eStreamer. We have 7.2 introduced, so things are going to be interesting from now onwards. And 7.3 is going to start soon. So yeah, pretty interesting things coming up. All right. We're going to start now, but just one request. Because it's a 45-minute session, I would request you to use the WebEx channel for all the questions and the feedback. We both will be here after the session as well, so we'll answer all of your questions to meet you. We have 45 minutes before our next session, which is part 2. Part 1 is we're going to talk about Syslog and eStreamer. Part 2 is the demo. So whatever we are going to talk about, we are going to demo it in part 2 session, which will be presented by Syed in the same level, 3rd floor, room number C, I guess, right? Yeah, so room number C. So that session is at 2:30. If you haven't signed up, and if you're interested in that demo, I would request you to please join us in there. All right. So, when it comes to firewall, we have 3 management solutions. Actually, 4 management solutions, because with 7.2 we released Cloud FMC as well. So we have the cloud version of FMC, which you can use for policy management. It does not support eStreamer at this point of time, but that's going to be something in the future. That's why I haven't included in this presentation, but just FYI, it's out there. We will be starting using it, I guess, from now onwards. So we have FMC, CDO, and FDM. FMC is the on-premises and now on-cloud available solution, which you can use as a centralized management solution for your firewalls. And it's not only it does more than the configuration. So we'll be talking about that. CDO is the cloud version of the management solution. If you have FTD, you just spin it up, you integrate it with the cloud, and you can manage all your policies through CDO, including the events which can be sent to CDO. And then we have FDM, which is the on-box manager. You have a firewall, you spin it up, it's already in there, you just start using it in terms of security events. So, okay, so FMC, the Firewall Management Center, it's more than just a config tool. It acts as a database for security events, a lot of network discovery and host discovery it can perform, maintain that in a database, and that database can be leveraged for later in terms of accessing those security events. One of the cool things with FMC is that it does support data correlation, which is again going to be an important factor when it comes to choosing between Syslog versus eStreamer when it comes to security events. So it can do data correlation, which can generate indication of compromises. So if you have a host, let's say which was highlighted due to some sort of security intelligence event or intrusion event, or if there was a host profile change, maybe the MAC address changed of the source, or maybe the host started acting weird after a certain point of time, FMC can keep an eye on those kind of incidents, those kinds of events, including the security events, and it can generate indication of compromise, indicating that something is wrong with this host, and this really needs to be investigated. And that's a type of event we generate as well. So this is just to let you know that the FMC is just more than a config tool. It maintains a database, and it can do a lot of when it comes to data correlation. This is just another slide which shows how those indication of compromise events look in FMC. And this is done automatically. FMC does all this data correlation and display those events and give you more details in terms of how many events, how many related security events were found with respect to that potentially breached host or potentially vulnerable host. A quick look in the visual guide. We have different security policies. We have security intelligence, IPS policy, access control policy, file and malware policy. So this gives you an idea about how different policies are contributing to different types of security events. For example, security intelligence, we monitor and observe different observables like IPv4, IPv6, domain, URLs, and we generate security events which are part of your connection events. And then we have traffic normalization and IPS policy, which generate intrusion events. Then we have application detection, network discovery, user identity, host discovery, which is performed by the FMC. There is an inbuilt Nmap scan tool which does all of that you passively and maintains a database of that. And we generate discovery events or host events for that, which we will be talking about. And then DNS sinkhole, SSL decrypt, URL, the regular web browsing stuff is also logged into the connection events. And these security intelligence, intrusion events, and malware events, these are the main three components which can be read by the Firewall Management Center and further used for data correlation and helps to produce indication of compromises. So these are the three main events which FMC uses and can help you with that data correlation aspect of the events. All right, so there are different ways to get these events out of the boxes. If you are using FMC, you have Syslog, you have eStreamer, and you have database APIs. As I mentioned, FMC maintains a huge database of all these events and the user and the host discovery. So all three can be leveraged to retrieve those events out of the box. And we will be talking about it. FDM, the on-box manager, it's pretty simple. It only supports Syslog. So FDM is basically your FTD itself because it resides on the FTD box itself. So Syslog is the only option. It does not support eStreamer protocol. So not even CDO. So FDM, CDO, they coexist. Whatever is available for FDM pretty much is going to be available for CDO as well. So FDM and CDO, they both don't support eStreamer. They only support Syslog at this moment. Remember I told you about the cloud version of FMC, which we introduced in 7.2. That's a big drawback at this point of time because it does not support eStreamer. So what does that mean is if you want to use FMC on the cloud for policy management, you can. But if you want security events, you will have to have a on-premises FMC instance up and running so that you can use security events. So that's kind of overhead because now you have two things you're using for policy config and security events. And again, I have been told that this is going to be in the future, so we'll keep an eye and we'll surely, be having a session when it's out there, and we will be delivering those sessions. All right, so unified Syslog. So we're going to start talking about the Syslog aspect of the firepower threat defense, or secure firewall is what we call now. If you remember when we introduced FTD, we had those two components, the ASA component, which is the legacy firewall, and the SourceFire, the Snot engine component, which had their security events logging separate. And if you want to get events out of Snot, I still remember IPS events were the only one you could get out of the box. You could not get connection events, you could not get file or malware events, and that was a problem. So even though we said we are a unified product, we have a FTD, firepower threat defense, still at the back end from Syslog and security events point of view, we were still using two different components to get out of the box, and there were limitations. This happened starting from 6.0 all the way to 6.3. We didn't have any solution. And then starting from 6.3, we basically combined the Syslog capability of both the products and made sure that we could get intrusion and connection events out of the box. Yeah, intrusion and connection events out of the box. So starting from 6.3 with the unified syslog, so it's the same syslog, we started calling it unified because now you could get your intrusion connection event at the beginning and connection event at the end out of the firewall under the same syslog configuration. And that made things easy. And then on 6.4, we also introduced the file and malware events as well. So yeah, from 6.4 onwards, it's pretty much the same architecture in terms of these are the main 5 types of security events, 43001 all the way up to 5, and yeah, we have been adding more fields into the syslogs, but as far as getting the events are concerned, these are the main 5 security events. Along with these 5 security events, if you know, ASA have a lot of other syslog stuff. For example, failover, dynamic routing, all of that stuff. That can also be taken care by the same unified syslog. So my point here is that with respect to the ASA code syslog, we never had security events, but when we unified that syslog code, we introduced these 5 events, which can be sent by the ASA code itself, which again, I know I shouldn't be saying ASA, it's the Firepower Threat Defense, but the ASA components takes care of it. So unified syslog, so this is where you configure your security events under it's a global setting in your access control policy. So if you edit the policy, you see up there, we have send syslog messages for IPS events and send syslog messages for file and malware events. Connection events are by default. In each and every access rule, there is an option of choosing connection event at the beginning and connection event at the end. So this is where we introduce that logging option. It's a global policy option which you can choose. And then under platform settings or system policy for the threat defense, we can enable syslog where you can either choose the management interface or the data interface to send those events to a syslog server. And we support both UDP, TCP with secure option as well. One thing I wanted to mention was that before we introduced this unified syslog, as I mentioned, we had separate codes, we had separate interfaces, we had separate host name for both the security engines. So the ASA or the host name was only represented by the ASA part of it. So if you have, let's say, FTD as a host name, it will be FTD, and then for the SNOT component, it will be a different host name. So that was always confusing. You have one box, but 2 different engines sending those security events under 2 different host names. And there was no config where the host name could be shared, and that was also a problem which was fixed with the unified events. So yeah, the syslog servers are configured in platform settings. We used to call it system policy as well. And yeah, like I said, you can use management or data interface, and you can define a list of security events. Remember I told you how if you don't specify a list of security events, by default, it's gonna send you everything, including these 5 events, plus HA, dynamic routing, ARP, whatever the system-related syslog messages are, CPU, memory, all that stuff it sends. But if you don't want those events, you can simply just specify that list and the list of IDs, and the firewall will only send you those particular 5 events. And that's also part of the syslog configuration in platform settings. All right, let's talk about samples. So this is syslog ID 43001, which is the intrusion event. So yeah, if you have an intrusion event, we will embed the syslog ID 43001, including the same host name. Under the one host name, which will be, let's say, FTD in my case, or whatever you have in your device. And it has all this interesting information, including the SNOT ID classification, inline result of your IPS policy. So all these things are embedded in that message, in that syslog ID. And this is plain syslog, the key value pair format or text format, no fancy stuff here. And then we have connection event, which is 43002 and 43003. I apologize if I speak too many zeros. So yeah, we have connection at the beginning, which is at the top, and connection at the end, which is at the bottom. If you see, there will be a difference in terms of what fields you get out of these events. For example, the one at the bottom, which says SSL ciphers and TLS versions, those fields are available in the first event, but you might not have the value because we need to calculate that based on the number of packets we receive. The first one, 43002, is pretty much an event which is generated after the first packet, which is TCP SYN packet or SYNAC packet or the first UDP packet. So you might not find web application, TLS, client application protocol details from the first one, and that's where we have the second one, which will provide you more fields in terms of data. And if you look at the one in the yellow, those are the fields which are only available and unique to 43003 event, because we need few packets, 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 packets, so that we can find out what that web application is. And if the session is closed, add that value into the session duration, and the same goes for SSL session ID. So yeah. Most of the stuff is common, except for example, these type of things, which might only be unique to the 43003 event, which is the connection at the end. File event, pretty simple. We detect a file, we are going to generate a file event, and the details are pretty much obvious and simple. The type of file, the size of file, the direction of the download or how is the file downloaded or uploaded, things like that. And then we have last one, which is 43005, the malware event. And yeah, this is an interesting one. So this will have more information as compared to file event. If you downloaded a file, it'll have a file event. And if that file was malicious, it will have a malware event. And you will have the Taylor's disposition, a threat score, and a threat signature associated with that malicious file. So all that information is included into this security event. All right, so syslog is simple, and there are many actually challenges with syslog. Remember we spoke about indication of compromises at the very beginning, which is a FMC thing. So if you are just using syslog, doesn't matter whether you are using FMC or FDM or CDO, you won't have indication of compromise events. There will be no data correlation if you are using syslog. And syslog is, we just receive the event and we just put it on the wire and it's gone. You won't have syslog stored in your firewall, I believe more than a few minutes. That also depends on how heavy the logging is and how much space your firewall has. So the log retention period is almost nothing, I would say. I haven't seen any customer who is not using FMC, but whenever it comes to FDM or CDO, troubleshooting becomes very difficult because the moment you start to look into things, there is no event until unless you send it to a syslog server. So yeah, I mean, in terms of syslog, you would have to have more than one syslog server if you want redundancy or backup your syslog events accordingly. And then if you want to use TLS, secure syslog, then management interface is not the option. You can only use the data interface of your firewall. So inside, outside, or DMZ, or whatever the interface you have, a data interface on your firewall, that will be used as the source of the syslog. And because we are limited to those 5 security events, that's the only option you can have in your dashboards. And that's where, we'll be talking about the other option, which is eStreamer. So we have all these events. Before I jump into the eStreamer component, before we have all these events and all these fields and data, we need to actually put them into a meaningful manner. We need to make sure that we are able to read it and we are able to access this based on what's going on, what is it we are trying to address. So all of this data and value is of no use if let's say, either you don't have the skills to look into those events, or if your tool does not understand these events good enough and does not have any type of correlation or automation which it can perform, and it's going to be difficult. So that's where the SIEM component or the eStreamer aspect comes into picture, because manual things would add overhead to you as an administrator. You'll have to look into different events, correlate connection with intrusion event, or correlate connection with malware events, and try to find things what happened, and it could definitely add to your cost as well. So that's where the data correlation and the automation aspect is very important, and that's where the eStreamer, Cisco Event Streamer, comes into picture. And it is a very SIEM-friendly protocol which can be used to access the database of the FMC, which has all the extra metadata and the enriched telemetry as compared to Syslog. Syslog was limited to those 5 security events, but when it comes to eStreamer, it's a client and server-based protocol, uses TCP 8302, completely secure, and it supports all the events which the Syslog did. Not only that, among those security events, it gives you more telemetry as well. Remember IOCs? IOCs is a FMC thing, and because eStreamer is configured on FMC, that's where the IOC events will also be a part of your either intrusion event or malware events. It's not going to be part of your Syslog. So other than that, discovery events, intrusion event packet data. So if you had an intrusion event and there is a packet associated with that intrusion event, we will capture that and we will send it to your SIEM solution using the eStreamer protocol. So yeah, it does support discovery event, correlation event. Correlation is another important aspect. Firewall Management Center supports something called correlation policy, which lets you to deploy certain rules according to your requirement, using many conditions for hosts and users in your network. So for example, it does that correlation for IOC events on its own, but you can also do manual correlation, which means if there was a traffic profile change along with, let's say, MAC address change for a particular user, and if there is a security intelligence event, I would like to alert that, because there is a possibility that if the traffic profile changed, maybe that host is compromised and it's trying to connect to a command and control server at the back end, and something might be wrong with it. So all those kind of things can be configured by you in correlation policy, which will lead to correlation events, and that can be sent to your SIEM solution or eStreamer server, eStreamer host, using the eStreamer protocol. So we integrate with, so we have our client. Syed is the one who actually codes that client and maintains it. We call it Cisco Encore Client. And many of our partners like Splunk, Sentinel, ArcSight, they uses that client to integrate with their SIEM solution, and we send all of this data to them as a part of this process. A little bit about the configuration. It's pretty simple. We just add a client, the host who is running that Encore component. We will add the IP address of that host into the FMC database and choose what all type of events you would like to receive, whether it's connection event, discovery event. For example, here I have selected everything. So there are 3 or 4 things extra than Syslog, which is discovery, packet, correlation. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So we send all that to the server. So in Syslog, we have Syslog IDs, but in eStreamer, we call them record type. So on the left, you have the main record type of your related event. So connection have 71, correlation have 112. So all these are record types. And then, so that's the data, the main security event data. On the right, you have metadata for related to that particular event. For example, intrusion event packet alert or intrusion event packet alert and intrusion event impact. So there is an intrusion event. What's the impact of that level of that event? Is it impact 1 or impact 2? Whether it's vulnerable or potential vulnerable, we embed that into the metadata, and that is sent to the eStreamer host as well. So yeah, these are the type of records, and this is just an example. For example, this is a record type 400, which is intrusion event, and at the bottom, record type 2, which is the packet data. So intrusion event and associated packet with that intrusion event. So if you have a false positive or a false negative, you will get the packet as well along with the event, and it can help you to investigate to tune the signature. If it is a false positive, then yeah, work on that, either disable the signature or tune the signature accordingly, and it can be taken care of. So yeah, that's the packet data, and if you see, that's basically the payload of the packet in terms of what's in the packet itself, and it can send that to the eStreamer host. Remember IOC, the indication of compromise. So the intrusion event and malware events sent via the eStreamer will also have those IOC tags, which are not available in Syslog. So if you want that data, if you want to know how many events are associated with your hosts that are potentially indication of compromise, eStreamer is the way. So similarly, this is malware event, and this will have, this has pretty much everything in terms of what we have in Syslog. So if you have a malware event and if you have a Syslog event, you're gonna get pretty much everything except, for example, archive depth and retro disposition. So if there was a file event, a file was submitted to Taylor's threat sandbox, threat grade sandbox. We call it secure malware analytics now. And if that file was found to be malicious later, that would be, that's where the retro disposition alert would be generated. It will be, FMC will be alerted that the file submitted 3 days ago is a malicious file, and here is the event for that, and that disposition will be, that information will be sent to the eStreamer host via the eStreamer if you are using this solution. I'm going to run quickly because this one is just the discovery event. Who's in your network? What operating system they are using? What's the traffic profile? What type of applications they are using? If the traffic profile has changed, if a new MAC address has been associated to an IP address, if the IP address of the same MAC has changed, different kind of things with respect to discovery, network discovery, host discovery, we generate alerts, and that alerts are sent to eStreamer host, which is a record type from 10. There are different types of record types associated with discovery event. I have included all that in that link, which says from 10 to 29 and more. Correlation event. Like I said, the correlation policy will allow you to configure any type of condition based on whatever is available in the database, and we have a lot in terms of what you can configure and combine and generate an event. This is just a simple example. If the traffic profile of a host changes, then generate an event. Or if a traffic profile of a host is changed, along with the security intelligence event or a malware event, I would like to alert it, and then this can be investigated later as well. And that's the record type associated, 112. So it might look simple in the web UI, but this is what we send in terms of eStreamer along with a lot of metadata in it. All right, so these were two, these were two Syslog and eStreamer event samples, and we can integrate our products with third parties, and they support mostly both. Syslog, you don't need anything special because you're just sending a key value pair or a text event, and it's totally on the host or whatever Syslog server you're using to interpret that. But when it comes to eStreamer, eStreamer generates the output in the binary format, so that's where the Encore client comes into picture. And we need to receive that binary file, convert, do the mapping and everything, and then send that event either in JSON or Ceph format out to the vendor, whoever we are using. So Splunk uses a Splunk format, which is like a key value pair. Then we have a Microsoft Sentinel connector, which uses Ceph-based output. We are working on getting it to JSON, so that's going to be in the future. And then we have ArcSight, which also supports Ceph-based output. We also partner with IBM QRadar, but they have their own connector. They don't partner with Cisco in terms of building that connector, so that's totally separate. And yeah, but it's based on Encore's CLI. So pretty much the same commands you run for these three clients, Microsoft Sentinel, ArcSight, or Splunk, you should be able to run it in QRadar as well. With Splunk, you also get a firepower dashboard which supports both Syslog and eStreamer. So whether you're using Syslog or eStreamer, this is like a nice dashboard look and customized widgets which you can get if you're using Splunk. Syed is the one who actually codes that Firepower Splunk app. And yeah, with every eStreamer release, we also release the Firepower app as well, I guess. Yep, supporting all the new events and everything. Okay, so this is just a table, a list I made. On the left, you can see we have the telemetry. So this is for intrusion event. And it's comparing that this is the data which you have in eStreamer and not available in Syslog. Indication of compromise, impact flags, impact alert and description, true IP or XFF. So true IP is the original IP if you're using a proxy in your network, and the client IP address is hidden behind that proxy IP. We're going to find that for both connection and intrusion events and display that to the SIEM solution. It doesn't work in Syslog. It's only supported in eStreamer. And then a bunch of headers with respect to HTTP, geolocation, and the client application information. So that's the telemetry, which is extra as compared to Syslog. And the right-hand side is the metadata, for example, packet data we talk about, and many other things which we send to eStreamer host. Similarly with the malware, I would say only 2 of the events were special. Archive depth, if you have a zip file or a RAR file which was analyzed, if it was zipped like twice or thrice, we will find that. And the retro disposition, if the AMP cloud finds out the file was malicious 3 or 5 or 7 days later, along with the metadata. So eStreamer challenges. It sends all the security events, but it won't send any system events related to your firewall. For example, CPU, memory, failover, routing. No, we don't send that. For that, you would still have to rely on Syslog. It does not keep a history of the events, which means if there was let's say your client was requesting something, it received something, and then there was a network disruption, and your client sends another request, the FMC server is going to send you the entire data once again. It does not keep a track of the history of what it sent, but it does maintain that database of all the events, for 15 days, 30 days, 45 days. So depending upon the database size, you will have those security events available in the FMC database for you to retrieve them later as well. So the keeping a track of the record is more on the client side. So whatever solution you're using in terms of SIEM, we have more than 4, by the way, which were listed there. The one which were listed, we support them. So we'll be talking about them a little bit later. eStreamer is complex. You need a dedicated, let's say, Linux server which is running Splunk or ArcSight or Microsoft Sentinel, and you need to go all through that configuration, generate a certificate, and then have that authentication, and then start receiving that client. And if you have your own client, then of course you need to make sure you have the correct mappings in terms of all the data and the metadata before you can start using it. So it's more complex, and it only works with FMC. No support for FTD standalone or FMC on cloud. It's a simple chart. Those 8 types of events, what is available in Syslog? We only have 5. We have already spoken about it, and it's just a chart which I think makes it easy to understand. So yeah, these are the. So we as a CSTA team are responsible for Splunk, Sentinel, ArcSight, and a little bit about, I guess, QRadar as well when it comes to support. So if you're using these 3 plus somewhat QRadar, we will be involved and we will help you to troubleshoot if something is broken, events are not displayed correctly, or if there is something new introduced in terms of syslogs or eStreamers, then we will be maintaining that client and make sure you have up-to-date information. So other than those 3 and 4, we have these partners, Logzilla, Huntsman, Symantec, and recently we have also started collaborating with Sentinel-1. So there will be a connector for eStreamer for Sentinel-1 platform as well. We still don't know if it is going to be our client or if they will be building their own, but we will find that out soon, I guess. So a little bit about the roadmap. Syslog is pretty much same when it comes to the firewall Syslog. You get what you have today. There is no roadmap in terms of introducing something new. But with FMC and the current eStreamer, which we call, which I think we can start calling it classic eStreamer, because we have something new in 7.2. So we have a new SDK client which supports 6 type of events. It does not support discovery and correlation. What's new in the new client? We are moving away from that binary format and all that mapping and conversion to make it more easy for the developers to make their own client and start using it. And it's called fully qualified, more like a text-based approach in terms of events, more like Syslog, but with all the same with the same type of events and data and metadata which we get in eStreamer. So that's introduced in 7.2. In 7.4, we will have everything in terms of security events with respect to that new eStreamer client, and it's going to make, I guess, Syed's life and other developers' life more easy when it comes to the implementation of eStreamer. And then, starting from 7.x, we don't know what's going to be that yet. We will also start supporting everything in FMC Syslog. So if you don't want to use eStreamer, there will be an option where you can just send all those security events via Syslogs from FMC. So that's also in the roadmap. And yeah, that's pretty much it, I guess. Some interesting things in the upcoming releases. So that's pretty much it. This is just, again, a simple chart I prepared in terms of, which one is good with perspective. So telemetry and metadata, of course, eStreamer is better than Syslog. If we talk about cost, of course, for SIEM, you require another SIEM solution. You need either Splunk, QRadar, or your own type of partner and their client. So it's going to add more cost when it comes to event per second, which might be more than as compared to Syslog. And then dashboard customization, implementation. Syslog is very easy to implement. You just click, and it's done. With eStreamer, yes, you would have to work, generate the certificate, get that SIEM up and running, integrate it, and then make sure you are getting what you need in terms of events. And dashboard customization. Of course, we have more data in eStreamer, so it's more convenient with eStreamer to get that set up. Data correlation, again, same thing. Syslog does not support that. eStreamer client will support that, or eStreamer host will support that. So Syslog, if you are integrated with SecureX, Syslog sends those events. Firewall, send those syslogs to FMC, and then FMC can send them to SecureX. So the SecureX view of security events is more Syslog based rather than the eStreamer based. So whatever you see in your SecureX dashboard, that's more like Syslog rather than eStreamer. So depending upon what you're using in your networks, you can choose those options. And of course, third-party integration, we can send both Syslog and eStreamer to both. And I guess it depends on the choice of your client. And yeah, we have pretty much almost everyone supports Syslog. So whether they have fancy dashboards or they allow you to create fancy dashboards, it totally depends on that solution. But with eStreamer, QRadar, Splunk, ArcSight, we do have nice dashboards, and we let you customize those widgets. That's pretty much it. Thank you. And we have part 2 of the session, which is demo. And we are going to see whatever we have spoken so far live in terms of all those security events. And Syed will be presenting that at 2:30, same floor, room number C. All right, thank you.